Paul Culliver with you on ABC Capricornia, 10 minutes to 9.
From Emerald to Rocky, this is ABC Capricornia.
All right, if you got young ones in your life, jumping on the internet, I mean, that's not even a question. Young people, the internet, it's inseparable these days. But how much can you control? Whether they've got a tablet, they've grabbed your phone, they're on the home computer, whatever it might be, how much control do you have over what they're seeing, who they're talking to? How much do you even know some of the dangers that could lurk? Well, more and more work is being done to try to make sure our children are kept safe on the internet. And it turns out, well, some of our CQ researchers are on the case as well. Associate Professor Michael Cowling is an expert in technology at CQ University. Morning to you, Professor.
Morning, Paul. Great to be here.
What is it that you've scored some money to do?
Well, that's it. We're really excited. It's just been announced that we've scored about $127,000 to investigate digital safety. So exactly what you were describing. How do kids make sure that they're safe online, both at school as well as at home?
How are you going to do it?
Well, that's a really interesting question. We're actually building on some work that we did with the Queensland Department of Education. And with the Queensland Department of Education, we investigated kids, particularly at school. But what we want to do now is we want to see what's happening at home. So we're going to talk to parents, we're going to talk to grandparents, we're going to talk to guardians, and get a feel for where they think that kids are safe, where they think that kids are not so safe. And the idea is to build a set of guidelines or a framework that can help us to guide our kids through this online environment.
It's such a challenging environment, Professor. I mean, like for many parents and guardians and grandparents, perhaps they didn't even really have internet as they were growing up and they were that age. And even if they did, the online environment is just so different now. And obviously there is like an infinite internet out there. Someone's experience of the internet might be entirely different to what their children might be wanting to engage with. So what is it? What's the world out there? What are we seeing for particularly those children aged 10 to 13 years? What are some of the, what's the world they're playing in the internet? What's the content they're seeking out? What are some of those experiences and where does that become an issue?
Well, I think that's a really interesting point because I think that's one of the challenges. What you raised at the beginning there is that we didn't have it. I didn't have it. Definitely my parents didn't have it. And so we didn't learn those strategies. And one could potentially argue that we still haven't really learned those strategies very well.
Yeah.
And so if we don't know how to deal with this kind of thing, then how can we coach the kids through how to deal with this kind of thing? But ultimately, what they're dealing with is a world of infinite possibilities. This idea that anything that you can think of is available on the internet. So what we need to teach these kids, and again, the research will inform how we do this a little bit, but really I think it comes down to self-control and understanding what they're seeing. There's a literacy component, there's a well-being component, there's a self-control component involved in what they find on the internet and then what they do with it once they actually find it. And that's really challenging. I've got kids myself, and that's really challenging to coach your kids through because, as you said, there's an infinite world of possibility out there.
I want to pick up on something you're saying quite clearly, which is about coaching the kids as about enabling the kids to deal with the content they're seeing. So implicit in that is, of course, that it's not just that obviously parents and guardians have a role to play, and they've got a really strong role to play. But at the end of the day, if we empower the young kids to deal with this stuff, that's going to be the most powerful, it seems.
That's right. And look, I'm not a massive fan of banning devices in the classroom. I'm not a massive fan of banning devices at home. I think they are our future, which is probably not surprising to hear from a technology professor. But I think it is important that we recognise that these are something that we're going to be using in the future. And so rather than saying, well, the easiest way to solve this is to take the iPad off the kid when they're not at school, instead I think we should coach them and guide them through that process.
What work are you building on? Obviously, we've had the internet for, I don't even want to put the number of years. What are we talking? 20, 30 years now. But and we've known that child safety on the internet's been a problem for a long time. So what is that research? What is that grounding that you're sort of going to be effectively standing on the shoulders on?
Look, it's really interesting because I think the majority of the work that we've done so far really is focused on digital literacy, right? Do they have the capability to use the tools effectively? And there's been some really interesting work in that space as well. And the summary of that is that we all presume that because they're really good at TikTok and Instagram, they're good at everything on the devices, and that's not really true. And I think it's becoming apparent that there's a lot more granularity to literacy. But what we're interested in particularly, which there hasn't been a lot of, is that more holistic idea, right? It's not just about whether or not they can use the devices and they can use the technology, but more so what are they using it for, and how are they using it, and how can we help them to understand what they're seeing? Again, I'm not looking at stopping them necessarily from using it for any particular purpose, but really just helping them understand what they're seeing and how it fits into their life as a kid, which is not that different to what we do with lots of other things already. It's just that we don't understand really how to do that with technology.
Associate Professor Michael Cowling, you're obviously going to start engaging in this research. Can people help you with it?
Definitely. That's awesome. Thank you for asking. We are looking for parents and guardians that are interested in talking to us and doing surveys and participating in interviews, particularly of kids from year 6 through 8. Right, so 10 through 13, because they're the kids that often get a little bit more independence on their devices. Right, prior to that, they're hopefully quite supervised, but after that, we give them a bit more independence. And so, yeah, if people are interested, please look me up on the internet, send me an email, or give me a call. You can find all my details at the Sydney University website, and I'd be more than happy to have a chat about whether we can talk about your kids, and maybe that will help set some guidelines.
That's awesome. Good luck with the research, and hopefully we can get an update as it progresses along.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to come back and let you know how it goes. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Associate Professor Michael Cowling, Professor in Technology at CQ University. It's about 3.5 minutes till your 9 o'clock news on ABC Capricornia.